Okay, so happy Friday, everybody. I want to go over a couple of the assignments, and again, I need to apologize because I realized I posted the assignments late. Everything should be posted for next week now. But let me take a look at that real quick just to make sure. And so it's your paycheck 8, 9, and APR assignment. And then Thursday is a little game. It's called Play Spent Activity. And it's just a fun little game that I found. So that day should be really easy. There is a project-based learning thing for this unit, and I plan on giving that into the classroom sometime next week, where you can start working on it, but there's going to be designated days where you have to complete that and do a good job with that. Okay. But I want to go over, certainly it's your paycheck number 7 today. So going all the way back to September 8th. And then I want to talk about credit cards. All right. So it's your paycheck 7 is talking about the rule of 7. I'm sorry. Did I say 7? It's your paycheck 5. Oh, you guys aren't calling me out on this? Apparently it's your paycheck 5. Did I do it right? Rule of 72. It's your paycheck. Oh my gosh, guys, I'm so sorry. It's supposed to be, it's your paycheck 5. I think I had it all right except for right here. I don't know where 7 came from. Okay, all right. Did I just confuse everybody? Do you guys see what I did?
Yeah.
All right, you guys okay with that? Okay. All right. So rule of 72. This is a thing that I think is worth taking time to talk about. And I think it's neat, but I think there's a deeper underlying thing about it, and it goes into like the human brain. The rule of 72 is a really, really, really simple way of finding how long it takes your time to your money to double, how much time it takes for your money to double. All right. And it's a real simple equation. It's, a number divided by a number equals a number, and you plug in X. And so if I remember correctly, it's the amount, no, it's the rate divided by 72 equals the number of years that, so let me write this down. It's the rate divided by 72 is equal to time to double. And it's pretty easy to overthink this, but it's so simple. It's, you can plug in any number. You can plug in a number of time to double, or you can plug in a rate, and you can solve for the opposite. So if you want to know how long it takes your money to, if you want to know what rate you need for your money to double in 5 years, you can do that. If you have a rate of 10% and you want to find out how long it takes for your money to double, you can do that. But the reason I think this deserves a second look is because if I offered, like Dalton, I said, Dalton, I'm going to offer you an investment, and I'm going to give you 6% on your investment. Okay. And then maybe somebody else comes to Dalton and they say, Dalton, I'm going to offer you 7% on this investment. Okay, so it's a difference of 1%. And maybe these investments have certain costs, like you have to buy in to get the investment, or maybe you lose access to your money, which is we call liquidity. What does 1% mean? Like what does 1% do to your investments? And so it's very hard for the human brain to think about the idea of what a percentage is on what's going to happen to your money. Do you guys agree or disagree with that? You guys can use the chat box. But would you guys agree that percentages, on whatever, are very easy for human brains to understand? Or I guess my argument, my thesis is that the human brain does not understand percentages very well. And maybe we can take all the reporting on the virus over the last 2 years as proof. So, oh gosh. So Dalton says, I agree. Brittany, Abigail, do you guys agree with that? And
I
so,
agree.
oh, good. And so, the rule of 72 puts it in a different perspective, because if I told you, Dalton, I'm going to offer you an investment and your money is going to double in 6 years, I think that's easier for you to understand. Or if I said, Dalton, I'm going to offer you an investment and your money is going to double in 7.5 years. Okay. That is easier for Dalton to understand than the difference between 6% and 7%. Okay. And that's why, when we start talking about money and we start talking about finances, we just turn a lot of people off, because gosh darn it, who wants to think about percentages and fractions and the future and APR and costs and credit scores, and it's just so gosh darn much. And it is a lot, but we can put in place some very simple rules. And the rule of 72 is just a nice way to say, like, hey, let's not make it too complicated. If you go with this investment, you will double your money in 6 years. And I think that's a lot easier than to say, like, Dalton, you're going to get an investment at 7% over this time period. Okay. All right. Does that make sense? And that's why I think I want to spend time on this. But again, it's very simple. You just plug in the numbers. So Jessica has a balance of $2,200 on her credit card at 18% interest rate. Her credit card company doesn't require minimum payment of balance, blah, 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 blah. Basically, you have a rate and you have time to double. How long will that take to double? Okay. All right. That is, it's your paycheck number 5, not it's your paycheck number 7. I need to clear all these and go to mouse. Okay. All right. So the next one was, let's see, cards, cars, and currency number 2. Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about credit cards. All right. Does everybody's parents have a credit card? Does everybody's parents use credit cards? Does anybody's parents not use credit card? Seems that just put in the chat box who uses credit card. It seems that some families are either pro credit card and they do everything with their credit card, and there's some families who stay away from credit cards, and that there seems to be just a dichotomy of philosophy about what credit cards are and what they do for you. Okay, so and there's even like a course at Rock that they teach the Dave Ramsey financial literacy. And Dave Ramsey, you guys know who Dave Ramsey is? He's this preacher who now makes millions and millions of dollars telling people what to do with their money. But Dave Ramsey says all debt is bad, and which you should know, credit card is debt. Like when you use a credit card, you are taking out a loan. So remember, debits are taking money out and credits are putting money in. So when you swipe a credit card, you're putting money into your account. Now that is not a true deposit because you have to pay that money back, but it's a loan. It is putting money, giving money to you. It's a loan. Okay. So Dave Ramsey says all debt's bad. You shouldn't have any credit cards. And that's the end of it. And if you never have credit cards, you're never going to get in trouble, and you're never going to pay all these interests that when you pay interest, you rob yourself of your financial mess. And you guys might remember we talked about compound interest, how much it goes up more than simple interest. And credit card debt is compound interest. And that's why people get in trouble, because they don't pay off their credit cards. And then all of a sudden, the $80 pair of boots that they bought on credit card is costing them $115 because they're paying interest on the loan. Okay. And, but what I want to tell you is credit cards are a tool. Okay. They're useful and they can make your life easy because they provide instant access to funds, to money, to it's a loan. It's instant access to a loan. But like any tool, if you don't know how to use it, if you use it improperly, it can hurt you, right? So, you might have a power saw and the power saw makes it so instead of taking 12 hours to build a table, you can build it in 2 hours. But when you operate a power saw, you run the risk of maybe cutting off your finger or injuring yourself if you don't use it correctly. And so, I think it is worth learning how to use. But you need to learn how to use it and you need to practice it carefully. If you're a risky person and you're doing a whole bunch of really dumb stuff, you probably should stay away from credit cards. Okay. You might give me an amen on that if you agree. If you don't agree, you can say I use credit cards, and let me tell you why I encourage all my children to get credit cards. And that's because, when you first start out in life, you don't have a lot of extra cash, but you might have a car. And when you have a car, you have risk. Okay. You have the risk of breaking down on the side of the road. You have the risk of your alternator going bad or a blown tire. You have to buy a new tire because you got a flat tire. Okay. And, maybe there's other risks too, like you have a big tuition payment. Let's say you're going to school and you have to pay tuition. Okay. So a credit card will allow you to have access to funds to pay for the tow truck driver. It allows you to have access to the funds where you're not, you're going to have the money when you get your paycheck, but you don't have it right now. And so if you have a credit card, you can pay for that tow truck driver. And then, when you borrow money from your parents or you get paid next week, you can pay off the credit card and you don't pay any interest at all. Okay. And I think that that credit card can save you from a lot of situations where, you need the money right there. And if you don't have the money, then you're in trouble. You're stuck on the side of the road. Okay. So I always encourage my kids to get a credit card because it can save your life. All right. I mean, hyperbole or not, sometimes you're going to get stuck where you have a big bill and you don't have that money in your bank account right there. Okay. But you can get the money. Only paying the minimum balance on the credit card is a bad idea. Okay. It's a terrible idea. People say, well, I have $100 credit card bill. I only have to pay $15 this month. So I'll just pay it next month. That is where compound interest gets in and it will eat away any chance you have of making savings. Okay. That's where that $80 pair of boots costs $115. All right. And you should always strive to pay off the entire credit card balance every month. And if you can do that, if you can use the tool responsibly, then I would agree with a credit card is a good idea. Okay. Some credit cards offer rewards. Okay. Like the credit card I use offers me like anywhere between 1% and 3% cash back. So, so if I go buy something with a credit card, I actually pay less for it than if I were to use a debit card, right? Let's say I buy those $100 pair of shoes, the boots, and I use my debit card. If I use my debit card, the $100 pair of boots cost me $100. But let's say I get 2% cash back. Okay, let's say I have one of these reward credit cards, which I do, and I use a credit card to buy the $100 pair of boots. Okay, so I'm going to swipe my credit card, and then I'm going to get 2% cash back. So now that $100 pair of boots cost me $98. Okay, so I'm paying less for it than the people paying cash. Okay, and if I pay the full $100, let's say I get the cash back later on in the year, but let's say I pay the whole $100 pair of boots off with the credit cards, then I don't pay any interest. So it's only costing me $100 to buy the boots, but I'm going to get the 2% cash back. So I'm really paying $98. Whereas, you know, if Abigail were to buy the boots with her debit card, it would cost her $100. Okay. So do you guys see how credit cards can be useful? Do you guys see how why I advocate for credit? You know, it's a tool. It can hurt you. But I think, you know, if you're smart and if you're, you know, going to do what you're supposed to do, I think you should have the tool. Okay. There's this question, APR on credit cards cannot change once you have the card. APR is what you want to look for, because when you look for loans, yesterday we talked about loans as there's two big things. There's rate and there's time. The third one is principal, but principal you can't control very much, but there's rate and time. That's big things that go into loans. So a credit card, it has a rate, and the time you pay it off affects the compound interest. Okay. And those things determine kind of the APR. So APR is the rate, but then APR is something else. It's there is affected by time, so time is there. Okay. And the thing with APR is that it also accounts for any fees added to the loan. So let's say you have a monthly fee to have a credit card, and some credit cards have monthly fees. The one that comes to mind is Discover. If you've ever heard of Discover credit card, or American Express, Amex. You guys might have heard of American Express as a credit card. Those you have to pay a fee every month to have the credit card. And, you know, that's fine. Some people like it. Some people do it. I own a credit card from Capital One and I don't pay a fee. Okay. So APR stands for annual percentage rate. And APR accounts for those fees, and it accounts for the time. Okay. Because a credit card can be a very short loan. And sometimes some other loans, like in It's Your Paycheck number 8 with payday loans, you're getting a loan for maybe 3 days, or you're getting a loan for maybe 2 weeks. And so remember our interest formula, the one right here, the I equals PRT, time is in years. And so we need to account for where time is now in weeks or days. Okay, so when you guys go for a loan, you're going to look at the rate. But as a caveat, what you really want to look for is the APR. And the APR is a manipulation of the rate. It's a truer rate that you're going to pay. Okay, so when you compare credit cards, you're going to find the APR and you're going to compare APR between different credit cards. Okay, when you go shopping for a car loan, you're going to look at APR. When you go shopping for mortgage, you know, I have an interest on my mortgage. Mortgage is where you take out a loan to buy a house, and the interest on my mortgage is like 3% or something. I pay 3% to borrow money to buy a house, which is ridiculously cheap. Okay, but when I borrow the money, I have to pay the bank to process the loan. So I might pay like $3,000 in closing costs. They're called closing costs. Okay. So I pay 3% for my loan, but I've also paid in $3,000 in closing costs. And those $3,000 in closing costs are kind of like saying you pay a higher interest rate. And that's where APR accounts for. Okay. So when you apply for loans, you want to look at the APR. Somebody says, hey, you know, this loan, I'm going to let you borrow this money at 5%. You're like, oh, that's really good. So you go check out and you're borrowing the money, you're signing the paperwork, and they say, okay, you know, here's your money. And then you also have to pay $75 at the counter. Okay, why do I have to pay $75 at the counter? Well, it's a fee for, you know, processing the loan. You're like, I gotta have a salary. I gotta feed my kids. And that $75 should be accounted in the cost of the loan. So now all of a sudden it's not the true 5%. It's different. And that's where APR is different than a rate. Okay. So the most important thing is the rate and the interest. Okay. Time is there too. But the type of rate you need to find is called the APR. Okay. All right. APR is important because it allows for easy comparison of loans. Okay, and it considers the full cost of the loans. All right, a rate does not consider the full cost if you're not including the fees and the closing costs or whatever it is when you go for it. Okay. This is like an example right here, and I'm almost done. Which is better? A 6-day loan of $500 that costs you $22, or a 6-month loan for $3,000 at 5.5% with collateral? The collateral means you have to put something down. So when you borrow money, you might borrow money for a car, and they say like, hey, what, you know, how am I going to guarantee that you're going to pay this back? We'll use the car as collateral. And that's where repo men come. They can take the car back if you don't pay on the loan. Okay. You know, how is a common person supposed to understand the cost of these two loans? Right. You know, which is better, $500 for 6 days, and you pay $22, or, you know, you're borrowing 6 months, $3,000 at 5.5% interest. And this is why it gets confusing, it gets hard, is because we don't have the common language. Okay. And that's where, when we get to it's your paycheck 8 in the APR assignment, you're going to calculate APR. And that's where being able to calculate APR is going to make comparing these two loans easy. Okay. This, I had this right here. So yesterday we talked about overdraft fees. We talked about bank fees. Remember how banks make their money. I pulled up this chart right here, and you can see like, okay, you know, you might have a monthly fee if you don't meet minimum balances, and you have overdraft fees and return item fees and negative balance fees. And we talked about that. And then I remember I had this chart, and I need to put this back in it's your paycheck 3. But you can see just how much, you know, overdraft fees affect the population in the United States. It's more than burglary. And I mean, it's legal. Like you say, like, hey, you know, the bank is saying, we're not giving you a loan. You can't take out more money than you need to. And like, you know, my daughter overdrafted because she bought something online with her debit card and it didn't process right away. So she overdrafted. I mean, essentially the bank's saying like, okay, we're going to loan you the money. We're going to pay for this thing you bought. And now you have a negative balance. So, I mean, and you know, the cost of that was the fee, because they say it's $36 in this case with BB&T or whatever it was. And that is you can calculate an APR with that. You can calculate how much percentage you paid to borrow that money. But it's huge for banks. It's absolutely huge. And there is a lot of push in the government. On one side of the government, there's a push to get rid of these overdraft fees because they say that it's kind of predatory. Like the bank should not allow you to overdraft. The bank should just deny your purchase. And then, you know, because all of a sudden, if you knew what you were paying, then you wouldn't use the bank. I mean, you wouldn't overdraft. Like, I don't think I said that particularly well, but you know, we talked about trust. We talked about banking as a matter of trust and relationships. And then can you imagine, you know, you made a mistake and the bank says, okay, we're sorry you made a mistake. Here's a fee for you for making the mistake. That's how you lose trust. But again, you know, banks are important too, like the economic stimulus package. Okay, so both Trump and Biden put in economic stimulus packages to help Americans during the pandemic when unemployment shot to like 36% or whatever it was. And they said, we're going to immediately put in money into your accounts. And that the people with bank accounts got the money first because it was easier for the government to pay those people. And so that's another, you know, when I encourage you guys to use banks, there are advantages to using banks. Okay. All right. This was kind of a sermon today. I think this was a happy Friday and not a lot of math. Did you guys get something out of this? Did you guys learn something new or hear something different? Would anybody like to share a credit card story? Crickets? I had no idea overdraft fees were so high until, yeah, I know. Like I said, one side of the government, it understands that or sees this as a problem, and it's terrible. And the people that pay overdraft fees, they're not rich people, it's poor people. You know, it's not me. I'm you know, I'm not paycheck to paycheck. But it's the poor people who are living paycheck to paycheck, and they pay the fees. They're the reasons the bank have money. Is, you know, rich people don't. Now the rich people have money in the bank, and the bank can use that money to make money. So, you know, there's that. But if you have money, I mean, in the bank, you don't care. So yeah, it's totally. All right. Abby, Brittany, did you guys get something out of this? Did I stop recording?